Welcome back to the deep dive. We are looking at a very crowded and frankly concerning couple of weeks of headlines, all centered on the Korean Peninsula.
That's right.
If you're looking for a clear path through all that information, you have come to the right place.
Our mission today is to really cut through the noise. We've synthesized a wide range of global sources, everything from state media to diplomatic cables, to figure out what the key decision makers are actually thinking.
And what their next moves might be. It's all about the facts, the intent, and bringing some clarity.
Exactly.
Now, before we dive in, we should mention that the intelligence you're about to hear was generated by Stylo News, an AI-powered news application. This deep dive is brought to you by our sponsor, ProWave AI.
And Stylo News is, well, it's unique. It's the consumer version of a piece of software called Stylo Intel Ops, which was originally designed for people in government, the military international business.
Right. So this means you, as the listener, get access to a tool that was really engineered for elite global intelligence tracking.
The key is speed and depth. Stylo can track hundreds of sources, social media, all in over 20 languages.
And the AI gets the meaning of the news, so it can answer your complex questions and give you real insight in, what, under a minute?
That's the goal. Analysis that keeps pace with a very fast-moving world.
Okay, let's jump in. The time frame is late December 2025, moving into early January 2026.
And what we see in this period is a clear escalating pattern. It's really twofold. North Korea's military capability is advancing rapidly, and its strategic resolve is hardening right alongside it.
So let's unpack that with some hard facts from the sources. The year ended with some major announcements. North Korea publicized the near completion of an 8,700-ton submarine.
A nuclear-powered strategic guided missile submarine, to be specific.
And that 8,700-ton figure, that's huge.
It is. It's a critical signal. This isn't just about a new piece of hardware. It's a concrete step toward what's called a second strike capability.
Meaning they could absorb an attack and still hit back?
Precisely. It's the ultimate deterrent, and, it fundamentally shifts the power dynamics in Northeast Asia.
And it's not just the big strategic weapons. Our sources say Kim Jong-un gave direct orders to ramp up production of missiles and ammunition. He even specifically mentioned things like the KN-25 rocket launcher.
Correct. So this is a pivot from development to, let's call it, mass manufacturing readiness. They're preparing for a sustained conflict.
Or at least to look like they are.
Right. And the testing schedule backs that up. We saw long-range cruise missile tests in late December, and then, boom, a hypersonic missile test on January 4th.
So what is driving this pace? What's the urgency? Our sources point to something a bit unexpected, what analysts are calling the Maduro effect.
This is where the story takes a fascinating turn. We're talking about the U.S. military operation that captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro.
On January 3rd, 2026, an event that happened thousands of miles away.
Yes. But to Pyongyang, that was perceived as an extreme example of U.S.-led regime change. And it sent a very powerful message.
Wait, are you saying the Maduro capture was the direct trigger for the hypersonic test? The timing seems almost too convenient.
It does. And many analysts are skeptical of the direct timing, but not of the lesson that Pyongyang took from it.
Okay.
People like Imyo Chul are cited across the board, suggesting that Maduro's fate basically confirmed a core North Korean belief for Kim Jong-un.
Which is?
That for any leader who opposes the U.S., denuclearization is, and I'm quoting here, regime suicide. It reinforced their deepest fears. So the action in Venezuela became a strategic accelerant. It justified the immediate need to show off their power.
So if that's the internal logic in Pyongyang, how is that affecting their actions outside the peninsula? I'm thinking specifically about their alliance with Russia.
It absolutely solidifies it. This isn't just a transactional relationship anymore. It shows a shared worldview, one where both Moscow and Pyongyang see U.S. sanctions and intervention as essentially an act of war.
And Kim Jong-un sent a letter to Vladimir Putin pledging unconditional and permanent support,
making that alliance much more formal. And this support is very material. South Korean intelligence estimates that North Korea has already sent about 15,000 troops to Russia,
along with huge amounts of artillery and missile systems for the conflict in Ukraine.
And in return, Russia is reportedly providing financial aid and, more importantly, critical military technology. This cooperation, it just fundamentally undermines decades of non-proliferation strategy.
And this leads us to some pretty dramatic evidence of illicit transfers. There are two incidents with cargo ships that you really need to know about.
The first was the sinking of a Russian cargo ship, the Ursa Major, off the coast of Spain back in December of 2024. Spanish investigators later confirmed it was smuggling undeclared nuclear reactor parts to North Korea.
A major breach of sanctions right
A
there.
huge breach. But the second incident, in early 2026, is even more mysterious. Another Russian ship exploded and sank in the Mediterranean.
And this one was reportedly carrying what?
VM-4SG nuclear submarine reactors, the heart of a nuclear submarine, also destined for North Korea. This immediately raised concerns of espionage, maybe sabotage,
And that has ripple effects.
a massive ripple effect, because a country like India relies on similar Russian nuclear techs for its own navy. So an incident like this raises alarms for them about their own security, their own supply chains. It just shows how, well, how porous the global sanctions regime has become.
Of course, all of this is causing major reactions in the region. Japan's defense minister, Shinjiro Koizumi, publicly condemned the launches.
And behind the scenes, sources indicate Japan is now seriously considering revising its 3 non-nuclear principles from back in 1967. They're worried about North Korea, but also about China's assertiveness.
Which puts South Korea in a very difficult spot.
Very. Recognizing the threat from the North's submarine program, Seoul has now gotten U.S. approval to develop its own nuclear-powered submarines.
Which they're framing as a non-nuclear deterrent.
Right. But Pyongyang, of course, immediately condemned it as a dangerous provocation.
This brings us to a really crucial diplomatic pivot happening in Seoul. Since mid-2025, President Lee Jae-myung has shifted away from his predecessor's hardline stance.
A big shift. The old policy demanded denuclearization before any real talks could begin.
And now.
Now, Lee's administration is promoting cultural outreach, things like joint Taekwondo heritage initiatives, even easing some travel restrictions. The new approach prioritizes stability and peaceful coexistence first. Denuclearization is the long-term goal, not the entry fee.
But hold on, Kim Jong-un just tested a hypersonic missile. That's the ultimate hardline move. Isn't President Lee's cultural outreach just going to be seen as weakness in Pyongyang?
That is the central risk of this strategy. It's a gamble, absolutely.
Who is it being taken seriously?
The Lee administration believes it's the only real path forward, and this culminated in a huge meeting. After the missile tests, President Lee flew to Beijing from January 4th to the 8th, the first visit of its kind in 6 years.
And he had a core request for President Xi Jinping.
A very strategic one. He asked China to step in and mediate to help freeze North Korea's nuclear and missile programs in exchange for some kind of compensation for Pyongyang.
How did China respond?
Cautiously, characteristically so. President Xi urged patience, a measured approach focused on maintaining stability above all else. China was performing a very delicate balancing act here.
Protecting its alliance with North Korea while also maintaining its economic ties with the South.
Precisely. And all this is happening while local military friction continues. Just last week, January 10th, there was a drone incident.
Right. North Korea accused the South of flying drones near Kaesong, claimed they used electronic warfare to down one of them.
And they called it unpardonable hysteria. Meanwhile, South Korea's defense ministry denied operating any drones on those dates and started its own investigation.
It just shows how quickly things can flare up.
Exactly. A small incident can overtake any broader de-escalation effort.
Okay, let's use all this to synthesize the perspectives of the key players here. This is how we can start to see what might happen next.
Let's start with North Korea. For Kim Jong-un, it's all about the pursuit of ultimate military strength, of nuclear deterrence. The alliance with Russia reinforces that.
And the Maduro situation just confirmed his calculus.
It confirmed that any dialogue requiring denuclearization is a risk he's not willing to take.
Okay, now South Korea. Under President Lee, it's a very different approach.
A strategic, balanced approach. He's prioritizing diplomatic engagement, seeking China's help to get a weapons freeze. He'll take stability now over total denuclearization tomorrow.
And the United States.
The U.S. perspective is one of supporting South Korea's defense while keeping the door open for talks. But there's a clear paradox.
That their actions elsewhere, like in Venezuela, are seen by Pyongyang as a direct threat.
Which just hardens North Korea's resolve against talking to Washington.
And finally, China.
China's goal, above all else, is regional stability. They support dialogue, but they're very reluctant to pressure Pyongyang too hard. They fear it could cause instability or, worse, push North Korea even further into Russia's orbit.
And looking at the sentiment across the sources, what do we see?
Well, there's strong international support, especially from the EU and Spain, for cracking down on those illegal nuclear shipments. Diplomatically, everyone supports engagement, but the overall feeling is one of cautious optimism.
Extremely cautious, I'd imagine.
Extremely, because of North Korea's hardened nuclear-first stance.
Okay, let's look forward. What are the critical events that you, our listeners, should be watching for?
First, the political signals. North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Congress is coming up in early 2026. That will define their new defense and diplomatic policies. It could open a door for dialogue or slam it shut.
Second, security. The sea trials for that new nuclear-powered submarine, they're likely to happen within months.
So that would be a major, verifiable shift in their capability.
Third, diplomacy. There's talk of a potential visit by UN Secretary General Guterres to North Korea to try and break the stalemate.
But that is entirely dependent on Pyongyang's cooperation.
Finally, the alliances. Keep an eye on adjustments to the U.S. national security strategy and on Japan's internal debate about its own nuclear policies. Those will shape the whole regional response.
And that concludes our deep dive into these recent developments on the Korean Peninsula. We hope this synthesis helps you navigate what's happening in this very volatile region.
We want to remind you again that this analysis was brought to you using Stylo News. It's a mobile and computer app you can download and customize for your own personal intelligence-style briefs, pulled from hundreds of news sources and social media.
It's your access to professional grade tracking. You can download Stylo News to get AI-powered news on demand. Just go to www.stylonews.com.
Before we go, let's leave you with one final thought. There's a data point in the sources showing over 60% of Germans support Korean unification, a view clearly shaped by their own history.
That's interesting.
It is. So the question we'll leave you with is this. If the North Korean regime truly believes that denuclearization means regime suicide, how does the world broker a deal that Kim Jong-un actually lives to see through?
A difficult question. We will certainly be watching. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. It was great having you with us.
Yes, thank you for listening. Feel free to request topics for future deep dives, and be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms. We hope to have your ear again soon.